There is a stigma around STIs. Even with perfect hygiene, people are still getting UTIs. Especially Black women have been subjected. They've been used, they've been studied, they've been cut open and experimented on without consent. Period pain is normal, but period pain that interferes with your daily life is not. What if the reason you haven't gotten answers isn't because your body is broken, but because the system was never built to listen to you? Welcome to G Chats. Hi guys, welcome back to G Chats with your host, Gianna Jara. We are joined here in the G spot and I'm so excited for today's episode. I guess excited, it's gonna kind of turn into a rant, I'm sure, but I'm going to be talking about the feminine hygiene aisle, and we're really just going to do a deep dive into feminine hygiene and just the feminine hygiene aisle, its history, touching on some of the science about your body that I really think that you need to know to understand how to take care of your private area and your genitals. And I think that this is a really important conversation to have because there's just so much misinformation online. I see videos all the time around misinformation of how to take care of your private region, and I'm tired of it. And I want to kind of clear it up and make a video on like the deep dive of the feminine hygiene aisle so that you really understand why I'm so irritated with it and the language that's used to push out certain products. Let's start with like the history. I have a timeline kind of written down so I could follow it. And I did actually just post a TikTok about it yesterday, and I was like, this would be a great podcast episode. Let's go back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. So companies began marketing products to women around very vague and like non-scientific diagnoses. One of the biggest one was female hysteria. If you guys don't know the history of female hysteria, it was a catch-all phrase. Any condition or thing that a woman would feel, whether that was depression after postpartum, you got migraines, and literally, I'm not joking when I say a catch-all phrase, I'm serious. It was a catch-all phrase. And you were just diagnosed with female hysteria. Now you probably know like hysteria is similar to the word hysterical, and it literally translates to like being crazy. But the root of it, hystera, is from the Greek word that means the uterus. So essentially, female hysteria was a way that physicians basically said women were crazy because of their uterus. And they actually believed that the uterus wandered and made the woman crazy. Such a weird, insane concept, but the feminine hygiene's birthplace really was on products that were rooted towards treating and marketed towards treating female hysteria and some other conditions around like female weakness and stuff like that. And when it came to vaginal health, I mentioned this in my TikTok video, there was one core concept, and it was odor. Now, it's not a secret that from the beginning of times, men really phrase the vagina as a disgusting organ because we have a period and we bleed, which is obviously not true. Bleeding from our vaginas does not make the vagina dirty. I'm so sick of this narrative that the vagina's blood is just suddenly disgusting and dirty. And that is really the narrative that the feminine hygiene aisle was built on, combined with female weakness and female hysteria. And women were told that their bodies were inherently unclean, and also that their natural scent was something offensive and you needed to fix it. This then became something where the marketing positioned cleaning yourself as a duty, something that you had to do to be a good wife, something you had to do to prevent your husband from cheating, and something that you had to do to be desirable. So you can already see that it shifted, and not honestly, I don't even want to say shifted. It really benefited off of teaching women that they need to take care of their genitals for the desirability of men and to maintain your place in society. And as we moved into the early to mid 1900s, the messaging became even more aggressive because we saw the rise of antiseptic products. So if you don't know what antiseptic means, it's antibacterial disinfecting products. One of them being Lysol. Now, I know that a lot of people were like, well, Lysol was also being used as birth control. That's also problematic. Even if you want to give them that and say women were trying to prevent pregnancy, obviously that's problematic. That Lysol is what was being used as birth control. And Lysol took the opportunity to market their products for birth control as well. So yes, it's sad that women did not want to have children and they wanted to prevent birth. So they were like, let me douche with Lysol. Lysol knew this and were marketing their products that were antiseptic chemicals to prevent pregnancy and marketed as a means of birth control. That's problematic because there were women who suffered from chemical burns. There were women who died from doing this practice. So even if you say, okay, it wasn't for douching, which it also was, there are ads that will be on the screen if you're watching the video on YouTube. You'll see the advertisements. I'll have them overlaid on the screen. The advertisements took advantage of playing up on the vulnerability of women and really were so aggressive with marketing Lysol to clean your vagina so that your husband wouldn't leave you, because if he smelled you and you were nasty or you had BV or something, suddenly your husband's gonna leave you. You could have all the qualities in the world. You could be smart, you could be financially stable, you could be literally everything that a man would want. But if you had this one neglect and you didn't take care of your vagina and you didn't douche with Lysol, your husband would leave you. And Lysol is the savior. Lysol is going to come and save the day. Lysol is going to be the thing to stop your man from leaving you. Insane. What an insane ad. Those ads are true. But also when women were like, oh my God, I don't want to have children, right? And there was this wave, we'll see, like the wave of feminism. But before that, like women didn't have the choice, right? They were forced to have kids. Their duty in society was you get married and you start birthing babies. And many women didn't want that life, but they didn't have the choice. They didn't have another choice. And so Lysol knew this. Lysol knew that women did not want to fall susceptible to society standards of what a woman's place in society is. Lysol knew that women wanted something different. There were women who didn't see the traditional path as something that is their path. And so they said, my husband's not going to respect this decision. My husband is going to try to get me pregnant, have unprotected intercourse, ejaculate inside of me, and I want to prevent a pregnancy. They took very desperate measures, including the use of Lysol. That is alarming. And Lysol preyed on that. Lysol knew that these women were desperate to create a life of their own and make a decision that wasn't the traditional route and marketed their products. It was the leading contraceptive of the time. That's horrifying. And as I mentioned, so many women struggled with chemical burns. They struggled with death. It literally even killed some women. It is so dangerous to use Lysol as a douching product. I didn't mention this, but a lot of you are probably like, how is Lysol used? Now, the Lysol that's sold on the store shelves, the spray bottle and also the aerosol can, it wasn't sold like that back in the days. It's the same brand. It was an antiseptic agent, but it came in like a glass jar that had like a cap. And this liquid would be used as a vaginal douche. And there was advertisements about it. It was used as a contraceptive to stop you from getting pregnant, obviously for obvious reasons, but it was insane that Lysol took advantage of this and made advertisements that were so aggressive in trying to get women to use it as the solution to your freedom, the solution to keep your husband. Insane. Like truly insane. They implied that if you had any kind of odor, your husband would notice. He would be literally disgusted by you, and then he would leave you or cheat on you, and that's your fault. This phrasing became, hygiene is not something that's optional. Hygiene is something that is tied to your self-worth. Hygiene is something that ties to your ability to be able to keep a man. That's the marketing and the language that was used. So by the 1960s and the 1980s, these products essentially became so normalized that stores began grouping them together. So eventually it wasn't just Lysol, it was company after company. And so they grouped them together, and this is how the feminine hygiene aisle was born. And it basically put douching products, sprays, wipes, deodorants, all the things that exist today were coming out back then, and they were all placed in one section, reinforcing the idea that this entire part of your body needs this constant management. And I mentioned this a lot. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you have walked into a store and saw male hygiene aisle, penile hygiene aisle? None of you have seen that because it doesn't exist. There is no aisle for male hygiene, for male genital hygiene. I'm sure you could find now there's like ball creams and ball washes and stuff like that. But truly, how commercialized and how common is it to find products made for male hygiene? It's so rare. It's so rare. And it's because the vagina has been made out to be this disgusting, nasty organ that needs all of this management, all of this cleansing, and all of this care for you to feel confident in who you are, for you to feel confident in your own body. And when odor does happen because of an infection, which is okay, like it is possible to have BV and have an odor at some point in your life. You are not dirty. You are not disgusting. You're not filthy. You're not less than any other woman because you have BV and you have an odor. You're not disgusting. And it's sad. It's truly sad. I understand if it was trying to teach women how to take care of their bodies and how to cleanse properly, because a lot of women don't learn how to be hygienic and cleanse properly because vaginal health is a taboo topic. They end up reaching for products that aren't good for the vagina, and that causes more harm than good. I see where, like, obviously we want women to know how to take care of their private regions and their genitals. Like, we want to teach people how to cleanse and all of that. You don't want to neglect your private area and your genitals, but you also don't want to train women that the reason you need to care for your genitals is tied to your self-worth, and it's because that's how you're going to keep a man, or that's how you're going to get in a relationship, and then it spirals into this is what's going to make your vagina smell and taste good and all of that. Like, that's damaging. So they're two extremes, right? It's either neglect or do the most for the sake of a man. You have to find a middle ground where we're teaching young girls, this is how you cleanse. And cleansing is important to maintain your overall health. Cleansing is important to maintain good hygiene. Make young girls understand that if you leave your hygiene as an afterthought and you aren't taking care of it downstairs and you're not cleansing properly, that can cause more harm than good. The neglect of your genitals can cause infections, can cause really bad odor, can cause itching, and can cause a buildup of dead skin cells. That has consequences. So it's neither here nor there. You don't need to be neglecting your genitals, but you don't need to be using antiseptic agents because your vagina is some contamination event that needs sterilization and you need to call a damn exterminator to clean your vagina. Like, that's not how this works. There is a middle ground, and clearly the history of the feminine hygiene was not built on that. It was two ends of the extreme, and it profited off of the other end of the extreme, which was you need to cleanse to have some self-worth, to feel confident in yourself. What's important to understand again is that none of this was built on real physiology. None of this was built on educating women on science. It was literally built on the narrative that your body is a problem to solve. And that narrative was established, and it became really easy to sell products that promised to fix something that truly was never actually broken. And we saw in the 1970s through the 1990s that science started to catch up, right? Science started to recognize, oh, there's this thing called the vaginal microbiome. Oh my God, the vaginal microbiome, the vagina is different than the vulva. And these are two different things. The vagina is self-cleaning. And if you disrupt the vaginal microbiome, increases your risk to pelvic inflammatory disease, increases your risk of contracting certain STIs, and it increases your risk for many other things. And we also saw a boom in toxic shock syndrome crisis, which forced more scrutiny on how feminine care products were being developed and marketed. And that was like really eye-opening for a lot of people. The thing is even though I'm telling you that the science started to catch up in those 20 years and the risks became even clearer, the marketing didn't disappear and neither did the products. We see today, it is 2026. If you go to your local drugstore, you will find a Summer's Eve vaginal douche. If you pick up the vaginal douche, what you will see on that box is a disclaimer. So the science catched up. The science says, douching's not good for the vagina. Douching increases your risk of pelvic inflammatory diseases and other complications. So these companies don't get their products removed. They just now have to put a warning that, hey, there's an association between douching products and pelvic inflammatory disease. So use at your own risk. Crazy. Science is catching up, but instead of the feminine hygiene aisle being abolished, these products being abolished, you just have these products throwing warning labels on their products and basically telling you, good luck. If something happens to you, it's not our fault. We want to cover our asses, but you should really buy this douche. If you get pelvic inflammatory disease, don't blame us. Hello? Crazy. So it's really unfortunate. And when you fast forward to today, there is language that sounds softer and it's wrapped up in wellness all over social media. And it's the same rhetoric that's just been repackaged. It's misogynistic language. There's so many videos that say, here's how to make your vagina smell or taste good. If you want your man to eat it up, this is what you're going to do. Here's how to freshen up before or after sex. Here's what you need to do to freshen up after your period. That's all the language that exists. All of the language that exists. And people will make videos, especially now with like TikTok Shop. You can be a TikTok Shop affiliate if you have a certain number of followers, and you can basically make an ad saying whatever you want to sell a product so that you can make commission. Even if you're not the brand owner, you don't have to be connected to the brand in any way, but you can literally buy the product, tag it on your video, and essentially make outrageous statements just so that you can make commission for the product. So the amount of times that I see people saying like, this is how you're going to make your vagina smell or taste good. This is what you're going to do to freshen up after sex. This is what you're going to do to freshen up after your period because you're bleeding and it's like really, a lot going on and gross. That's the language that's used to push a boric acid suppository, even for probiotics. Now, you guys know I'm the founder and CEO of With Meraki Co. I have supplements. I will never get online and make an ad that says this is how you're going to make your vagina smell or taste good. Will probiotics that are effective support odor on the inside? And with Harmony, for example, helps with odor on the outside because it has a stress component to it? Yes, it will. Will I get on the internet and tie your self-worth to our supplement? No. In fact, what I'm going to do is educate you on why odor in the vagina might exist, why odor on the outside might exist if it smells musky or it smells like onions. That hints to me stress sweat. I'm going to explain what stress sweat is, and I'm going to explain to you how our products could potentially help. I'm educating you so that you can make informed decisions if you then want to buy our products. But I'm not going to tie your self-worth and your identity and your relationship with intimacy to my products. I'm not going to tell you that this is what's going to make a man devour you. I'm not going to make a yoni oil that's going to convince you that your vulva will be yummier and that's what's going to make a man desire you more. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that here at With Meraki Co. And I wish so many other companies followed those ethics. It's very sad. That's kind of like the history of the feminine hygiene aisle and essentially like what you'll see on today's store shelves and the advertisements that you'll see today. And I feel like that was such a important backstory to discuss and talk about, because if you don't understand the history of it, you won't understand why I'm so irritated with the space and why this podcast episode is so important, because we still see things on store shelves like boric acid. And I see videos on TikTok too, like feminine hygiene routines. And it's like, use boric acid and spray hypochlorous acid spray after you have sex on your vagina to prevent a UTI. And it's like, what? What are we talking about? And this is really important because misogyny in women's health, both in the wellness space and in medicine, is so prevalent. And I feel like if we don't call it out, I talk a lot about medical misogyny, but I'm so sick of the wellness space and the feminine hygiene space profiting off of misogynistic language, off of misogynistic marketing, off of insecurity marketing. They literally profit off of your insecurities. They want you to feel insecure about any type of odor. They want you to feel insecure about the taste of your vagina. I actually made a video a few months ago about Michaela Noguera. She made a video in partnership with Lemmy Purr, and essentially, whether this is true or not, you could say, oh, she'll say anything for a check. So maybe the language wasn't true. Maybe what she said wasn't true. But the fact that she still said it reinforced an idea that so many women believe in. She said, I haven't let a man ever go down on me because I'm scared of what it'll taste like. So now I'm taking these Lemmy Purr gummies to get my vagina ready for oral sex. That is incredibly problematic. Mind you, she has a husband. So a lot of people felt like it was disrespectful to her husband. I don't care about her relationship. I care about the messaging. That is incredibly harmful because it sets this tone that you need to do extra preparation before sex. You have to take these supplements to get your vagina ready for oral sex. A real man would know that the vagina is not supposed to taste like a fruit salad. You'll see people all the time that's like, take fenugreek 5 days before sex so that it can start to taste sweet like maple syrup. What happens when you're like pregnant or you're postpartum or you're going through menopause and you can't introduce, or like you're traveling and you can't introduce fenugreek? You feel insecure then, oh, I don't have these supplements to make my vagina taste good, so now I can't have sex, or I'm not going to perform well, or my man's not going to like it, or this one night stand's going to be disgusted by me. It doesn't work like that. And it pushes this narrative that the vagina needs this in order to be desirable. You don't need to taste like maple syrup to enjoy oral sex. I'm sorry, but if your man, it feels disgusted by your vagina just being an organ, I don't think he's the person you should be sharing your genitals with at all. Like, I don't think it's appropriate to set this narrative that we need to artificially taste like something or have artificial flavors down there in order to be desirable. I mean, men aren't doing that. Men aren't taking supplements to make their dicks taste good before intimacy. They're not doing these things. They're not buying washes that smell like cologne to make it smell good down there before intimacy. Like, they're not doing that. They're not practicing 5 days before to make their semen taste good. Like, they're not doing that. But yet the expectation is always placed on women, and women buy into this, and you see it all over social media, and it's very frustrating. So that's why the history of the feminine hygiene aisle is so important. And we have this modern version of the same shame: how to freshen up after your period, how to make your vagina taste good, obsession with smelling like fruits and flowers, the overuse of boric acid, antibacterial soaps are rampant. Like, people are selling Dettol. First of all, I've never heard of Dettol ever in my life until TikTok Shop. Women are online on TikTok Shop trying to make commission selling Dettol, and they're like, you need to take a Dettol bath. It is an antiseptic, antibacterial liquid soap that people are putting in their bath and saying, like, you need to bathe and like wash your vagina with it. You need to wash your vulva with it. You don't. You really don't. Soap and water is very, very important, like a gentle cleanser, but not antibacterial soap, not antibacterial Dove, Dial, Dettol. I don't care what it is. It's funny, they all start with the D, but literally none of them. Like, you don't need antibacterial, antiseptic agents down there. You don't at all. Like, at all. You can literally use an unscented, fragrance-free soap, and that'll be just enough. And this is where I briefly want to talk a little bit about the science. Now, I talked about it a few episodes ago, but there is a difference between your vagina and your vulva. Your vagina is the internal canal. It is inside. So the vagina is regulated by good bacteria, okay? Every healthy vagina has a dominating presence of good bacteria. This good bacteria produces lactic acid, and it keeps your vagina acidic, keeps the pH balanced. When you use products inside that you're not supposed to, it can kill off the good bacteria. And if you kill off the good bacteria, you can make yourself more susceptible to BV, yeast infections, UTIs, pelvic inflammatory disease. The list goes on. You increase your risk of contracting some sort of STI. So the vagina is what's self-regulating, but it's self-regulating because of good bacteria. So maintaining the good bacteria through something like probiotics is really important, because there's so many things that can make you lose good bacteria outside of feminine products. It could be antibiotics for strep throat. It could be birth control. It could be stress. It could be hormonal imbalances. There are so many things tied to making you lose good bacteria in your vagina. And when you lose this good bacteria, again, the risk increases. So you can maintain this good bacteria in your vagina, and by maintaining the good bacteria in your vagina will be self-cleaning. That is what's self-cleaning. Now the outside, the vulva, so your labia majora, there's the labia minora, your clitoris, the clitoral head, the clitoral folds, all of that, your butthole, your rectal opening, the space between it, the perineum space, so the space between your vaginal opening and your butthole, all of that should be cleansed with a gentle soap and water. Water alone is not going to lift away. Now, listen, I understand why so many gynecologists, and I spoke to plenty of gynecologists in my time in this space. There's a reason why the gynecologists tell you need to use just water. It is because everything that exists on the store shelves sucks. They don't want you using Summer's Eve. They don't want you using a Vagisil. They don't want you using all of these washes that cause more harm than good. They don't want you using any of that stuff. So how do they get you to not use it? How do they get you to not touch it? They tell you just use water. Just use water. Rinse down there with just water. Now, personally, do I agree with that? No. I don't think that water is enough. And the science tells us it's not enough because there's oil glands, there's sweat glands, and sweat glands can produce two kinds of sweat, one of which is apocrine sweat. And apocrine sweat is your stress sweat. And stress sweat, when it sits on the skin, can turn into that onion-like scent. Now, this stress sweat is thicker than regular water-based sweat. Now, the important thing to understand is what makes it thicker is lipids. It's thicker, almost like creamier, if it makes sense. You won't notice it. Water alone doesn't lift away the lipids. It simply doesn't. So it almost will kind of create this film down there. And if you do just use water, if you pull back your clitoral head, you will eventually start to see white buildup. You will see white film on the clitoral head. Again, that's not to say that you're disgusting. That's not for you guys to be like, ew, that's so sick. Some people literally are just taking the advice of their physicians and they're like, okay, I just need to use just water. The reason why I think that that could be potentially harmful is because buildup can happen when you're repeatedly just using water over the thicker sweat, dead skin, oil, all of the things that are produced down there, even discharge, it can build up. And the buildup can cause other things. It can cause Bartholin cysts. It can cause those glands to get backed up and cause a cyst, which is insanely painful. It can cause some conditions and cause some issues if you aren't cleansing properly. So no, I'm not in the camp of just use water, but I respect the gynecologists, the dermatologists, the OBGYNs who do say just use water because it is coming from a good place. They mean well when they're saying it. It's because everything out there literally sucks. So the solution is, guys, don't touch it. Don't get fancy with it. Just use water because in theory, it's better than the complications that will come from an aggressive soap like Summer's Eve and Vagisil and things like that. I do believe that a middle ground needs to exist, which is why I'm coming out with something. And when you guys see this episode, it will be in May. And this month I'm launching a feminine wash. I've been working on it for so long and I don't like calling it a feminine wash because again, I hate the feminine hygiene aisle, but this is a cleanser for down there. And I know I just kind of threw that on you guys, but surprise, I am so excited for it. And I can't wait for you guys to try it. We're coming out with it in May. And the reason I'm launching it and the reason why I came out with it is for this reason, because there literally is these two extremes. Either use these aggressive cleansers or just use water. Something in the middle has to exist. That would be gynecologist approved. That would be dermatologist approved. That would literally make every single person say, oh my God, yes, I want to cleanse with a soap and water, which technically this isn't soap. It's a synthetic detergent. So it's a Syndet bar, and Syndet bars are like the gold standard for down there. Now you can use Syndet liquid soaps, but those are slightly harsher than the bar format, which is why I'm doing a bar format. And the reason is so that this is like a gold standard formulation that anyone, whether it's a young girl who is navigating puberty and wants to start cleansing and taking care of her hygiene and learning about hygiene, she can use this. And then it's a grown woman who is going through menopause and experiencing vaginal atrophy and the natural changes that come with menopause. She can use it. The person who just gave birth and is postpartum and experiencing vaginal atrophy, hormonal changes, third-degree tears from pregnancy and birth, they can use it. Someone who's going through HRT, hormone replacement therapy, someone who's trans and is transitioning and is on hormone medication and they are experiencing vaginal dryness and changes in the vaginal tissue, they can use this. It is literally made for every stage of the vagina, whichever phase you're in, whichever stage you're in your life, whatever is going on in your situation, this product is for you. It's safe for everyone. That's what I wanted. I wanted a gold standard formulation. And I'm so excited to actually be launching this and for you guys to have it and use it and try it and experience what it's like to take care of your vulva and your private region and your genitals for you and you only. This isn't a product that has fragrance that's going to make you smell like a flower, taste like a fruit salad. This is a product that is going to cleanse your external genitals properly and also have ingredients that are nourishing for the skin, build that skin barrier up, and support even the internal environment. You don't put this inside of your vagina, but it's safe enough that what the ingredients exist on the outside will complement what your vagina on the inside would want. So that's the key thing, right? You don't use these washes inside, but disrupting the skin barrier, disrupting your external genitalia, your vulvar region does impact your vagina, the internal canal. So when you have a product like our barrier bar that's launching, when you have that kind of product where you are supporting the outside with skin loving ingredients and vaginal microbiome loving ingredients and not gimmicky products, there's no like probiotics are in here because it's not going in your vagina. Skin loving ingredients, ferments that support even the internal balance. That is what's key. There's synergy between the vagina and vulva, and many feminine washes and feminine products, they don't recognize that synergy and they only care about trying to make their wash about the vagina, which the wash doesn't go in the vagina in the first place. So that is key. I'm so excited for you guys to try it. Please keep up with my TikTok, my Instagram, our social handles so that you can be prepared to see the launch. Subscribe to our email list because that is how you are going to be in the know of the launch. And also one last thing, guys, if you love these podcast episodes, I would really appreciate it if you could go and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts because it really does help us with getting the podcast pushed out. So if you can, I would sincerely appreciate it if you guys can leave a review. I know so many of you like watch it, thumbs it up and things like that, but we're looking to get more reviews and I would love it if you guys can do that for me. But nonetheless, follow us on other socials, join our email list so that you can be in the know with the new product, the feminine wash, I guess the vulvar cleanser bar that I'm releasing. And yeah, that was kind of the deep dive of the feminine hygiene aisle, the extremes that exist, the science, and why I'm being the change that I want to see in the aisle. So I love you guys so much and I will see you guys next week. Bye guys.